Great. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out to check out what I did this summer. What I mostly focused on this summer was updating the THREDDS Data Server web user interface and extending some of the capabilities there. So that was three main parts to that. First, I took pages that were written using like a string builder and converted that to a templating system using Thymeleaf. Then I updated the UI a little bit, made it a little prettier, made it so you can customize how it's styled, and made it so that administrative users can add their own HTML pieces to their THREDDS data server. And then I added a Jupyter Notebook dataset viewer. So the first part of that's the Thymeleaf templating, which used to look like this. So this is how we built the very top of the dataset view page, piece by piece with little HTML strings. Using Thymeleaf instead, we chose Thymeleaf for the templating system. Well, Christian chose Thymeleaf because it's a server-side templating engine. It's really fast. The templates are natural templates, so they can be rendered as HTML by the browsers, and it integrates really well with Spring, and a lot of TDS uses Spring. It also has some other great features, like a lot of variable and selection expressions, meaning it's really really flexible in what kind of context you can put in and how you can change it. It has all of the basic operators that you'd want, like logicals, if-elses, for loops, and it has fragment expressions, which are basically little pieces of portable HTML that you can reuse, put into different pages, move around, etc. So this is an example of one of those fragments. It starts off as natural-looking HTML, but that fragment named axis can then be ported around to different pages and different parts of your templates. So right now, the pages that use Thymeleaf are the catalog pages, dataset views, and NCSS, both grid and point pages. Why are we turning everything to Thymeleaf templates? It's simpler to use, simpler to read, simpler to edit. It's a lot faster, so taking a fully built template and putting in the information that you want is faster than trying to write out a full string for that full page. And it's very consistent. You're always using the same structure, same template. You're just changing what pieces get pulled in and moved around. So with the Thymeleaf templating, this is now what that same piece of view looks like. Instead of writing out the HTML is now in its own file, a template file, and all we're doing is adding some context. So the display name of the data set is saved as a variable and then ported into our template. So it's a little cleaner to look at, nicer to edit. So the next part was then, once I had converted these pages into Thymeleaf templates, trying to make it look a little bit prettier so a end user who's just scrolling through the THREDDS Data Server can find things more easily. This is my favorite CSS meme. So I'm just going to show you before and afters of how things used to look and how they look now. This is catalog pages that we all recognize, know, and love. This is the new view of the catalog page. This is the old dataset view. And this is the new dataset view.
Nice. We're in the 21st century.
Yeah, welcome to the 21st century.
But at least the folder icons in that first view are still the same. That's all.
Well, yeah, those were already updated. They're at least in the 90s.
Yeah.
Right, so like I said at the beginning, the UI updates had two big parts to it. One was making the CSS customizable, and that was a feature that already existed. Users could already add their own style sheet to it, but it was difficult to use because with that string builder, everything was kind of unpredictable how the page was going to show up, and a lot of the style was just included as tags in the elements. So we've now made it with a template so it's reliably structured. Everything has classes and IDs, so it's a lot easier to figure out how your style is going to be rendered. And every page pulls in corresponding style sheets. So if you add a standard style sheet, that'll show up on every page, or you can have page-specific sheets like a catalog.css for just the catalog page, dataset.css for just dataset views. And then you can add your own bits of HTML using those Thymeleaf fragments. So we have each template is structured as a rigid skeleton, and it pulls in the fragments that it wants based off what data is available. There are a couple set plugin points where administrators can add their own custom HTML. So that's places like a customized header, footer, an extra content section, but they can't change some things like the main catalog table, because that's the basis of our catalog. To add fragments, all they have to do is add it into their content directory. Some of those fragments override our defaults, and some of them are just contributed. So if they don't add anything, just nothing will show up. To do this, it took adding an extra template resolver. So we have our default template resolver, which is the Spring Resource template resolver. And then I added another one, which I call the TDS Extensible template resolver, which basically just looks for any fragment that starts with the pattern ext. And if it finds that, then it'll go look externally in the content directory for a user-supplied fragment instead of within our webin folder. So the way that that ends up looking is the top example is the overridable header. So it's going to first use that TDS Extensible template resolver to look for a header fragment in the content folder. And if it doesn't find it, then it will use our default and the Spring template resolver. And then the second option is, or the second example is a content section. So there is no default there, but if it finds a contributed content, it will add that. So this is the example straight out of the new documentation. If you wanted to add your custom content section to the bottom of the data set, you just have to add this fragment called dataset custom content bottom to your TDS template fragments.html. And then if you want to include some other fragments that you've written yourself, you just mark it with that ext prefix, and then you can reference any of your own files on your server. All right, and the third part was a Jupyter Notebook service, which was kind of halfway through the summer. I was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if on a dataset page, you got a little snippet that told you how to access that dataset using Siphon? And then that escalated into what if it returns an entire Jupyter Notebook that tells you how to access it and view it and stuff. So this is what one of those notebooks looks like. This is the basic default one. It's pretty simple. The goal is that when you're on a dataset page, you can just click that notebook service and it'll give you back a IPyNB file that's filled in with the catalog URL and the dataset name, so that then you can use Siphon to just grab that data and probably show you some simple ways to visualize it. So this one's populated the catalog URL, the dataset name, and then is telling you how to grab that using TDS catalog in Siphon. The way that it works, when the server spins up, it'll create a cache that stores all the notebooks and maps them to different data sets that they are used to view. It will take every notebook file that it finds within a notebooks directory and parse it into this notebook metadata object, which I'll get into detail a little more later. And then it registers a new viewer on the site. Then every time you load a dataset page, it'll access our cache or create a new mapping to an appropriate notebook. And then when you request the notebook service, it will read in your mapped IPyNB file, populate it with the catalog URL and the dataset name, and then return your new edited notebook file so you can open it with Jupyter Notebook or Jupyter Lab and play around with it. So the way that mapping works, you can add some metadata to your notebook called viewer info, telling it what data sets it's used to view. There's a couple different ways that you can decide how to accept notebooks with so this example is showing what catalogs it'll work for. So any data set that's inside that catalog, this viewer will be valid for. And then it's the second order one. So you could have a primary one that would come up first. So this is that notebook metadata object. It stores the file name of the viewer and then the different data sets it'll accept. So you can either decide to accept all data sets, a list of data set IDs, a list of catalogs, a grid or point type, and then tell it what order to be chosen. And then those are all stored in our Jupyter Notebook service cache, which keeps a list of all the notebooks and a cache that maps each data set to notebooks. So if you want to add your own notebook viewer to your instance of TDS, all you have to do is create your notebook, update the viewer info metadata to say what data sets you want it to be used for, and then you place it inside your notebooks directory, and then restart your server. All right, so some demos. First, I'm going to show you live on the dev site. Yeah, nobody breathe, live demos.
Live demos.
Oh boy, here we go.
All right, so this is THREDDS dev with the new look about it, and Sean's actually used the templates to add a custom footer. And if we go to a dataset page, these ones are interesting to look at. Here's dataset page. Everything's now tabbed content, so it's a little bit cleaner to look through. And I'm going to show you the notebook viewer with a different data set because that one's kind of big to deal with. So if I want to use the notebook viewer to look at this data set, I select that link. It downloads me a Jupyter viewer. I have a notebook server running in my downloads folder right now. I hope, unless it's crashed. Here's my notebook. It tells me how to set up my environment to run the notebook, my imports. Now access the catalog, list my access URLs, and then, whoops, skipped one. Really simple widget that lets you choose different variables. I'm going to choose this one, although it might take a minute to plot. And a little simple plotter that will take a second.
And we're looking at Go's imagery in this example.
We are.
Comes
Just
channel 1.
Channel 1.
we'll come back to that in a second. I should probably have subset it for this particular.
Yeah, they're pretty large.
I think it took about a minute when I did it earlier.
It's live, that's why it's taking slower.
Probably.
It just seems long.
Now,
Probably the internet just crashed.
when you selected all those items, all the elements of this notebook, is there a default, like you have to select them all, or you just say, I'm
So
confused by that.
the way
you get
that,
all the metadata to view that data set, why did you have to select all these different things?
like, run through it.
Yeah.
So the way that notebooks work, none of these values are, we're not executing any of that code until I tell it to execute. So it's just Python text until the user goes through it.
So you're
But that makes it interactive. So then a third party or an end user can come in and look at our examples, but also change it and rerun it and try it with a different variable and try it with a different catalog and things like that.
your selection process was just choosing the thing that you wanted to act on, right? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
because
asking?
I was thinking when she was choosing that, it was the metadata that for that data set would populate.
Here's our image.
But the URL
Yeah.
is what you handed,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
then
There's-
it's available.
Yeah, it has to be executed with the Python kernel in the notebook.
It's tricky choosing whose images.
Is that nice?
Yeah.
There's our image. Woo, no. All right, second demo is TDS not in the wild. So I'm gonna show you building a local server from scratch and how you customize it with the new features. All right, so I've deployed, oh, that's not the right one. I've deployed my own version of TDS. It has some of my own research data from back at school. So I have my gator symbol up there. So this is the default. If I want to start editing it, all I have to do is start adding and changing stuff in the content directory. So the first thing that I'm going to do is say, I want the style to look kind of different. So I've made my own style sheet, and I'm going to come drop it in my content folder here. Now, oh my God, it's hideously gatory. It's really orange and blue. And that shows up. That was a style sheet that was meant to act on all of the pages, so it will also show up on the dataset view, also has all of this style. But then I want to add some things just to the catalog page. So I'm going to take another style sheet that's just registered to that page, drop it in here. Nothing's changed here, but if I go back to the catalog, now that header is a different color. It's now also bright blue and orange.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.
I like it. It's kind of like a new look into the old, like all the colors are same in the white text part.
It's also much brighter on my screen. You guys are getting the nice muted version. This is really orange and blue. So then if I want to start adding my own content with the Thymeleaf stuff, again, all I have to do is edit some things in the content folder. Here in my templates. Oh wait, I'm in the wrong folder. So here is my TDS template fragments page. I've already written my little templates, but I'm going to uncomment them. So the first thing I want to do is have a custom header. Sorry, checking all around. Where'd that go? Just close my server. I think I just closed my server. But not my server, just the page. All right, there's my custom header. So all I did was add a link to my own department page, so you can go there if you want. So the next one that I'm going to do is an extra content section on the catalog view. I'll do that again. All right, so now I've added another section at the bottom that links to relevant literature. So I can go look at stuff, papers written about the projects that gave us these data sets. And then I want to add another content section that's only going to show up on pages for some data sets, but not all of them. So that was for these GPS data sets. And what I did was add a banner that tells you a little bit of information about that data set. So for this particular data set, there were no issues. But for example, one that we collected a month earlier, we had some issues with recording antenna heights, and we had to post-process it to change it. So this is just a little warning telling you, hey, here's some info about that data set. Okay, so this is I'm going to redo that so you guys can see what I was just talking about. This was the first one where I have a banner telling us everything's great, green light, awesome. But for this other data set, warning, info, this was post-processed, know that that happened. Right, and the last one that I'm going to add is an extra tab section on that data set page. Any minute. Well, I have it now, so it should catch up. Right, so there I added that section. And oh, we're caught up now. This is what I see on my screen. So I've now added.
What did you add?
I've added this extra tab that wasn't here before that's called equipment, and I added a little thing that links to tell you a little bit about what the equipment was that we used to get this data set. So you can go look at the specs for how that was gathered. So that's the last of my contributed sections to show. And so the last thing is the Jupyter Notebook viewers. So I have all of those, all the ones that I want to use in this notebooks directory. There are 4 different ones, the default and 3 that I've added. They're all mapped to different data sets. So this particular data set doesn't have a mapping that I added. So if I click, it should download the default Jupyter viewer. So that's the one that I just showed you on the live server. But there are other data sets that are mapped to my own contributed notebooks. So for the title gauge, if I come in and use the Jupyter Notebook service, it gives me a tides viewer. And reopen my notebook server. All right, so now I have this THREDDS Viewer notebook, which should be hopefully filled in with that data set. And if I execute that, I can see the ways that the variables that are inside that data set, all it has is times and water levels and really simple print out a plot, print out a zoom in plot. So just an easy way for a user to interact with that data set. A couple other viewers. So that one was registered for just that data set. I just gave it that data set ID, and that's the only one that that viewer will be valid for. For every data set within this catalog, I said this catalog works with the viewer DEM viewer. So let's open DEM viewer. It is here. And now I have this other viewer that's giving me going to give me a DEM based off that data set, which was recorded elevations on a beach. And it compares it to another DEM.
Are you ahead of the screen again? Yes.
Yes, I am.
You're beeping.
Okay, it's executing right now anyway. So we're all waiting at this point.
We can see what she sees.
Oh, mine finished.
We'd be saying, I gotta get me some of that.
Oh, that's good. How do you know it this way?
There you go.
There you go.
Slowly but surely. Looks like your internet is disappeared again.
For a long time.
And
How are
At
you
least up
sharing
there,
the screen?
yeah.
Through
I
Doug's
heard
machines.
it,
Yeah, but how?
Right, yeah, that's the current view,
through
right?
your go-to meetings.
There
Okay,
we go.
there it caught up. So this viewer is showing me the first survey that we did, which was before Hurricane Irma, and the data set that I had selected, which was February 27th, and it's comparing those two. So that one will work for all of the data sets in this catalog, except for, because that was a second order data set or notebook, I also have a first order specification that says for the very first data set, give me back a different notebook because I can't compare my first data set to my first data set. They're going to be the same. So this one gives me back a special case DEM first viewer, which does the same thing. It just only shows one graph. So I'm not going to go through it since the internet will probably stop. Okay, so that was all really fun to do, but why was I doing all of it? The point of all these extensions to TDS was on the administrative side, it makes it more easy to curate your data using the extensible Thymeleaf fragments. You can decide what information you want to be shown and how, and you can target users and use cases with those notebook viewers. So if you're doing something for students, you might have a very interactive educational kind of notebook, or if you're hosting model output, you can show analysis of model output. And then for the end users, it lowers the barrier to entry for using data because someone that doesn't know a lot of different software for data access can just go online and navigate more easily through the hosted data and then see examples of how to access and use it so you can reach a wider range of users. Some use cases for this, the primary use case obviously is having large data repositories to make it easier to navigate, discover data, visualize it, and access it. There are also a couple probably less common use cases, such as like educational. So if you're trying to teach how to use large data sets, do a lot of data analysis, you can use these notebook viewers to interact with students on how to engage data sets. And publication purposes is something that I want to play around with when I go back of hosting my own TDS small on AWS or whatever services that you're using, publish small amounts of data and as supplementary material, and then you can link to that in your publication and show your data, how you analyzed it, what your output was, all of that, and they can be reproducible through notebook servers. Things still left to do. There's some unexciting baseline work. I haven't documented how to contribute notebooks yet. I promised Doug I would do that before I leave. There's some tests to be added. There are currently no tests on the notebook service and no UI tests. Some more exciting stuff are things that I noticed while I was building my own demo server. It'd be really nice to have a sort of free-form metadata type for the Thymeleaf templating, because as of now, it's kind of hard to decide, well, I just want this information to be in there. Knowing where to put it is a little hard. I added it to the properties section, but it'd be nice to just have a contributed data section. When I first made the templates, I thought, oh, we'd never want top content to be added to the dataset page because you want all those access links to be up there first. But then when I made those warning banners, well, that'd be better at the top than the bottom. Then it'd also be nice to have some pattern matching for how you register notebooks to datasets instead of having to, if you have multiple datasets you want to work for, don't write all the names, but just pattern match. And some more features that could be added, multiple notebook viewers per dataset so that a user can choose which one to use. A source for distributing some common templates. So if someone makes a really cool viewer or a really cool Thymeleaf template that they think a lot of people would want to use, a way to share that. But also, TDS is one of those less is more kind of services where the more lightweight it is, the better. So I think fewer features is probably safer. And to summarize, TDS is now more configurable than it was before. All the changes that we've implemented can be made without exploding the WAR file. So all that can be done externally in your content directory. There's more things for me to do, but I'm still on the GitHub repo and have my email contactable. So I'll hopefully be able to put out any fires that come up in the future. And this picture I like to call my summer, a visual summary.
9%.
And wanted to, well, I should turn around. Want to say thank you to everyone, especially Sean, Ryan, John, other John, keeping me company all summer. It's been a really fun summer, so thank you. Question?
Chocolate and what? Chocolate.
Coconut and something else. I don't remember.
9%.
9%.
Yeah. Just remember it's 9%.
Yeah. 9%. That's why she's so happy.
They're all fixated on the beer.
Nobody cares about the work.
I'm trying to take her back. She's tough.
Yeah.
It is International Beer Day, in case anybody was interested.
That looks domestic.
I say we fly for it.
We're part of international too.
Any not beer related questions?
Yeah. I don't know who you're with.
Wrong audience,
That's-
sorry.
I do have a question, and I heard my ignorance on this, but when you make the call for the Jupyter Notebook to the TDS, does it pull all the data that is relevant to that notebook back, or does it operate on the remote server?
So that's siphon capability, and the remote access won't start pulling down data until you start saying you want to use it. So when you start subsetting that data, and that's when it starts giving you back data.
So it does still transfer over to the local Jupyter server, the Jupyter server that you're in use?
But only on request.
Right.
You can access it without
You
downloading
can
it.
interrogate or query, and then in subset, and then that's the and then they'll still transfer over.
Has Jen seen this?
Not really, no.
Just, do you know if she knows about, what was it, Thymeleaf?
She has
She
seen
does,
it.
yeah.
She has seen it. I've sent it out to her throughout the summer and bits and pieces.
Okay. 'Cause I'm just thinking, UCAR is gonna come down on us and say we gotta make all of our web pages, the same.
Web pages
Again.
This is a service, so this is not a web page.
Well, yeah, the question is will it extend to
Right.
stuff like this?
Yeah.
Well, I think we can all agree that the current one needs to look more like what Hailey did this summer anyway, so.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's no argument there.
So one of the things that's really interesting about it, I know you said wait till both are on, but I think this is relevant.
No, we're doing
So
questions.
this actually adds some stuff, it seems to me, to TDS that was missing and then was always compared to Ramada, right? The thing that I don't see here, but maybe I'm missing it, is like upload your own data set to a server and then have it be accessible by the entire front page.
Definitely thought about it.
Yeah.
But no, it's not there.
That's a good idea.
But
There is
Hailey's
a-
solution's been to have her own thread server,
Mhm.
Well,
right?
There is a solution for that. It's not fully functional, but there is a service called Reify that Dennis enabled. It allows you to upload data sets and expose them to the TDS. But we're not advertising it, it's not hardened. It's
What
not
kind of
even
vetting
being
you
used
use?
right now.
Yeah, really.
We're not doing much other way than proof of concept at this point.
So would that would all be controlled by access control, so for instance, some people, like you have a login.
Yeah.
You're vetted by the TDS server so that you can do it and other people can't do it.
It's not by the TDS server, it'd be by perhaps Apache.
Oh, so it's
Higher level
sort of
server.
separate, and then how do you tell the TDS to go ahead and say, oh, this stuff is now there?
No, it's just,
TDS,
I'm missing something.
yeah, TDS knows where
it's just the authentication that is Apache.
No, I
So
understand.
we go through TDS to upload something, but when you prove that you are you,
Right.
it would be, it's not important. I mean, basically you're going through TDS to authenticate and whatever, it's just that there's another layer that's actually doing the authentication.
No, I'm obviously missing something. So the question is this. One of the things we liked about Ramada is you got an account, okay? So you log in, you have certain access privileges. And then you can upload data sets and boom, you can like visualize them with tools in Ramada. This seems like it's gone a long way towards that. Is that what you're talking about, John? Is like the ability to do that uploads and stuff?
So the service for doing the uploads is there, but account management is not.
Okay.
However, Jen's building account management into Rosetta, which then could transfer over to the Threads code base and take us even one step closer.
Okay. So working out the mechanics and then just
And then could you have a Jupyter server running on the same machine as Threads, and so that people would not have to have a Jupyter server running? They could just download the notebook and point it towards our Jupyter server and get data visualization?
Well, that is what is,
or in the
No.
cloud, right?
that's not what this is doing, but I mean, like Jillian is running that on,
Yeah, but you
Jetstream.
don't want to do it that way because what this does, it's a service. You click a link, it downloads a notebook to your laptop,
Yeah.
local. There's no, you have to go back and upload it up there. What you'd want is you want to be able to add a custom viewer link to the catalog that then points to
exactly, to a specific.
something on the server that's co-located.
I know,
Something to make that less, so let's say I'm running a Jupyter server, and I'd like to take advantage of that notebook, how do I do that without having to fire everything up and on my own?
Isn't that risk overloading the server if a lot of people are running?
You could have the viewer link go to a separate server.
That'd be what I'd do.
Sounds like a project for that server's Intern.
The whole thing is, data proximate analysis,
Right.
right? And so if everything, all the data is moved up into the cloud.
Well, that's where I'm getting, how to bring it all back.
Well, but there are,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just closing now, it's just, there are issues if you have 40 people on a Jupyter Hub server where you're gonna have a lot of resources.
There's
No, I
something
understand.
I was thinking about partway through the summer of being able to upload scripts and execute them there, but for a
Yeah.
data server, all we're promising is the ability to serve that data. And so you don't know what people are gonna be uploading and trying to compute then on your server.
Yeah, I know, that's why I was making the comment about not general, not anybody can upload anything because bad stuff will happen. But, so a login mechanism, so that a user, there are certain class of users that are vetted and they prove they're not gonna do something detrimental to the operation of the server or whatever, that kind of stuff. That seems like it'd be really powerful.
Yeah.
It's like GitHub.
It's like Ramada.
A science gateway, if you would.
I mean, and that's what people are looking for, right? So I think what you're saying, Jeff, is like, you're sitting there and you've got your Chromebook, right? You're not gonna run a Jupyter server on a Chromebook necessarily, then you might, and you're in your dorm room or whatever, and you just wanna, okay, here's a data set, and I got it from the professor, and it's uploaded, and boom, I'm visualizing. And I'm taking care of my assignment, my research, or whatever, right? Isn't that the objective?
Yeah,
Okay, that's what you're talking
that's what I'm driving
about. All
to.
right, we're talking about the same thing. So get on
That would be great.
Maybe we're spring break.
Before 5 o'clock today.
Get more of those and get after it.
When does she stop?
After you, this afternoon, after you finish all that documentation you said you were gonna finish before you leave, just get on that too.
No, but this sounds like something, this sounds like something we should remember for our proposal.
Oh, see?
What's
Well,
that?
Yes, that is exactly, that is what we've been talking about.
Yeah, stick what we've just been talking about in
It's
the,
already there, man. We talked about that and, I mean, at least to some degree, but we need to fill in the pieces,
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
more details.
fill in the pieces before you go.
You got till 3
6
o'clock,
hours.
right? So plenty of time.
We're at lunch until 2 and then,
Lunch is for people on schedule.
I was told that earlier this week.
I think one of the big things here, though, is really reducing the amount of boilerplate that somebody has to write in terms of siphon code.
Oh,
Say,
yeah.
here's a data set. I want to grab this and see what
Amen.
I can do with it. You got this notebook. You can immediately start writing your code below it.
Couldn't agree more, but I'm just saying that this is the logical first step to where we can then go in the future. I mean, we can't just jump right to the future and get immediate satisfaction.
What?
I'm sorry, we don't have the time machine going yet, but I see where this is going. I'd like to see that end goal be where you don't have to fire up your own Jupyter server and, make it just more seamless to the end user.
Well, but it depends on who the user is and what you're trying to do. I mean, this is great for a lot of people. That is great for the unwashed masses.
Oh, no, you want both.
You gotta have-
Exactly right.
Exactly.
That's, yeah.
You want to drill deeper and customize things, or just, hey, I just want to take a quick view of the satellite image. And then that's what I'm saying, in that case, you would have to go buy and do the modular, yes, I want this, and then default